Ring, 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 ring. Hello, Mr. Bezos. No, I'm sorry. I can't come to you with you to the moon. I know it's crazy though, that 40 views in one day, but I still have stuff to do here. Man, the amount of fame and fortune that I've gotten ever since recording that itch.io video is so insane. Sometimes I wish I could just go back to my roots, talking out of my ass about anime.
Hello, today we're going to talk out of our asses about anime.
Let's go!
Hello everyone. Today we're going to talk about Monogatari, which I finally got him to watch after, it's been like a year and a half since we started this. The thing I have always said about Monogatari is that it's so dense that it will produce infinite content for us. And every time I watch it, I'm like reminded by just how deep it is. Like it sounds kind of dumb. Like it sounds like I'm just like a dumb super fan. But really, every time I've watched it, and this is like my fifth time watching it through all the way, I see something new. I have a completely new interpretation of the show. And the fact that this keeps happening over and over again just leads me to believe that, like, I am never going to understand this show. And I'm also never going to be able to produce something that reaches that magnitude. It's both a source of inspiration and a source of frustration, you know?
Well, then we're wonderful foils for each other, because I have an incredibly low regard for Monogatari as an art form, purely because I've never watched it, right? You fell down the rabbit hole, but like, you talk about, no, it's the show about the 9-year-old putting her feet to the camera, but like, it's deeper than that. And then I would go online and I read somewhere, the mission statement of Monogatari is all fan service has meaning. There is no such thing as pointless fan service. I'm like, okay, this sounds to me like the kind of mental gymnastics that you go through because you want to convince people that the weird, like, hentai that you're watching actually is like has super big artistic meaning. I am setting that aside, and I'm going to do my best to approach the next goddamn 100 episodes of Monogatari that we watch with an open and pure and artistic mind.
Here's what I'll say to that. My first watch through was definitely I was writing it all the way at like an 8 out of 10. I was thinking like, this is a good show. It has a lot of funny dialogue. It has shit plot, but the characters are cool. And it makes me think occasionally. And I went my way through the show the whole time. I was enjoying it. It was not until the end that I understood what was happening, like, at all. And at some point there will be a moment for you when it clicks. It might be the end. It might be before the end. You'll just realize that, like, everything you've been watching has been saying something. And I'm gonna kind of like spoil it for you, because I'm gonna talk about everything that it's saying while we're watching it instead of like leaving you in the dark.
Yeah, we won't do it like ReZero.
What happened in ReZero?
Well, with ReZero, you wouldn't tell me anything, and so we'd do these episodes, and I would talk, and you'd be like, "Wow, that's a really interesting one." Unfortunately, everything that you just said is about to be invalidated by the next episode, and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, well that's great." I just edited a 2-hour-long video.
I'm gonna do that. The thing is, there's still going to be an enormous amount of content for us to talk about, because Monogatari is just that deep.
Oh, so
there are multiple hidden layers behind everything that we're going to talk about,
All right, well, whatever. I'm ready for it. I'm just saying from the get-go that I'm putting it aside, but let it be known that I am not fully convinced that this is not just some big psyop to convince normies that you're...
No, it's fine if like throughout the show you're giving honest critiques of it.
There will be no... It's all bad faith critiques. There'll be no honest critiques coming from me.
I am interested, though, if at any point you feel like a click, when that is, because different people have who have shown this show to have described.
So I will say, and to do our every time we do this, we to circle the wagons a little bit, we talk about what you think of the anime. What do you think? I will say to give it its flowers. It is a mark of good writing when you can have twists that make you feel something visceral. Every story has a twist, has arcs, and that go up and down. But when you react to one of them, it's sort of, I feel at least, it's your subconscious's way of saying, oh, that was good, that got you. And at the end, we watched episodes 1 through 5. I feel like we should have mentioned that. At the end, when Hitagi reveals that she can't see the snail, yeah, like that sort of in less of a way than you were describing, I think, over the entire show. That clicked, and a bunch of things I had picked up on retroactively fell into place. The fact that like all of her character interactions felt very scripted. The fact that Hitagi was acting sort of weird throughout the whole thing. The phone scene that made no sense. Where he was like on his phone while what's his face was talking to him. You're gonna have to fill me in on the names because I cannot remember these Japanese names.
That was Mei.
Yeah, sure, meme.
Yeah, meme.
That clicked, quote unquote. And so I will say, like, in terms of writing compelling and interesting sub stories to make up a wider thing throughout over 5 episodes, Shaft has shown an ability to do that competently. And so I am optimistic for what I will think as we get deeper into it, because so far it has been well written and compelling, even if it is I think right now a little bit plotting is the wrong word, but maybe self-serving.
So this is a good place to start with something that I wanted to talk about. The author's name. This was originally a novel series. The author is Nisio Isin. So Nisio Isin is a mystery novel writer. His first novel was in like 2000, and he wrote Monogatari in 2007, 2006, something like that. And so he has a pretty big backlog at the point he's writing this of mystery novels, and only mystery novels. And this is not like detective fiction, but it is very much following the exact same structure that a mystery novel would. There are hints riddled out throughout the episodes, pointing to something that you don't quite grasp, but they all make sense at the end. There are red herrings, which is another mystery novel trope where details are given to you, they're fed to you directly that don't actually fit into the greater picture that's going to appear at the end. And all of these things are building on each other, building tension until a moment of catharsis when the detective reveals the solution to the problem, which in this case is not really a plot problem. Like, it's not a murder mystery. Although there is a plot and there is a plot problem. But that's like, it's like not the point. Mm-hmm. The point was Mayoi's arc closing in that cathartic moment. Mm-hmm. And all of the character interactions, you understanding them.
I'm glad that you said mystery novel, because I've studied mystery novel structure to an extent, or mystery structure in general to an extent, but I like to think about it in the 4 stages of, there's introduction, discovery, rediscovery, and reveal. Mm-hmm. Where, with the first beginning, the setup or whatever, then we're walked through all of the clues, including the red herrings and something, up until some sort of not the inciting incident, because that occurs in the setup, but sort of the inciting incident of the investigation, where now our previously examined facts of the case, quote unquote, can be re-examined in a new light, and some things start to sort of collapse inwards. I've heard it described as the funnel, where the mm-hmm. huge scene slowly begins to funnel down into sort of one line of reasoning. And then from there, we are able to see the big reveal, where, if it was Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot would gather everyone and say, this is why this person must be the killer, and walk through it exactly, and then they would be arrested and carted off, and that would be the end. And I do see a lot of that structure in how, Monogatari is very nonlinear in its storytelling, so it's not this exactly, but I see that overarching structure in how these arcs are being designed, specifically in regards to that discovery into rediscovery or funneling stage, where, while not being presented with the exact answer, we're suddenly re-examining everything that we thought that we knew in a new light because of some piece of information that has connected an important dot.
I think you can actually fit everything that happened in the Mayoi arc to these stages. You have discovery, which is them realizing that Mayoi is being led around by a snail, and then you have rediscovery, which is when they realize that Mayoi actually is the snail itself, and then everything is explained. And the grand reveal, the grand solution is at the end when Mayoi's arc actually closes.
It's interesting. I would have actually put the rediscovery at when they realize that they're wandering around to nowhere.
Oh, okay. That's also true. That's also fair.
And that the
And then
actual
the reveal
reveal is when Hitachi says, "I
Hitachi.
can't see her."
Bro said Hitachi. This is why I wanted us to watch the first 5 episodes, is because the first arc is really like introductory
Yeah.
and does not follow this structure. But the mystery novel structure that is present in the Mayo arc is going to be something that recurs in every single arc from here on out. And in fact, it is going to occur with the entire series as a whole. There are going to be red herrings and little hints dropped throughout the series, answering the question of like, what is even happening? You know, like what is the point of everything? And that's what I was talking about with it clicking is, and what you were talking about with it clicking is this mystery novel reveal is going to happen, and it happens at the end of the whole series and happens at the end of every arc, and whenever that happens, it clicks for you, and that's what happens for me. And
So let me pose a question before we get deep into your 5 pages of topics you have in this 2 hour long episode, probably.
dear Allah,
Uh,
wallahi, we are finished.
Red herring is, at its core, lying to your audience. You should not lie to your audience. I have an answer. It is an answer that I flip-flop on a lot, but in your mind, what makes a good red herring, and how is it different from just like annoying obfuscation? Because we've all read books that just lie for no reason, so that they can have some semblance of being a deep mystery when really it's just bullshit.
Like you were saying, when a book just adds obfuscating bullshit on top of the narrative to create red herrings, that's not good. And in a similar sense, really, as long as you're not adding obfuscating bullshit, but rather you're taking what's already there and coming up with plausible explanations, this is what's going to make good red herrings.
I mean, yeah, so building off of that, I think that a good red herring is one that builds off of a preconceived assumption, preconceived notion, subverts it in a way, but also reveals why sort of running with that as your initial assumption had some sort of fault. I think most, bullshit red herrings are ones where the red herring explanation was perfectly logical and sometimes even more logical than the actual story. The best red herrings that I've ever experienced, usually not sometimes even just in mystery novels, but in any sort of like, puzzle solving, ARG, whatever kind of piece of media that I've consumed, have been ones where once the red herring is revealed, I'm like, oh my god, there was a flaw in that. I jumped to conclusions because I had seen this pattern before, and so I was like, yes, but there was an obvious flaw. Maybe not obvious at the time, but certainly not. The flaw doesn't come out of nowhere. I think red herrings become bullshit when it's like, well, how was I supposed to know that? And the cardinal sin is when the red herring explanation somehow makes more sense than the actual explanation, because at that point you've just failed in constructing your mystery.
Yeah. So there was a red herring in this arc. That red herring was Mayoi discussing her parents divorcing, which reminds us very strongly of what we just happened with Senjougahara, with her parents divorcing and her having a lot of difficulty processing that happening. So we're all expecting Mayoi to have like a similar sort of problem and a similar sort of supernatural symbolism plaguing her, and then that's not it. So
And we assume that the snail is I think that's a really good way of putting it, because I assume, okay, so I was like, okay, so this show is about a weird loner virgin creep who finds children of divorce and helps them fight their spirit animal to form his harem. Sure, sounds great. I can't wait till we get to Shinobu. I need her. And so when she was like, oh yeah, I went to live with my daddy, and my mom left, and then the snail. I'm like, all right, cool. So yeah, so her spirit animal is the snail, and that's why I say I think that the funnel point was realizing that they're not actually going anywhere, going to someplace that doesn't exist. Is because once that happened, I was like, what? Wait a second though. Like, if she went off to go be with her dad, then why can't she find her dad?
This red herring isn't presented just like from the plot. It's not presented by the author. It's actually presented by Mayoi, who's just lying to your face.
Yeah.
While we're trying to solve her problem. So why do you think she's lying?
Well, if we are to believe, this offhand comment at the end that she makes about, I went up 2 ranks as a spirit, we are to assume that there is some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Mission or desire or aim of these lesser spirits or whatever. that
Mhm.
there was a system of progression, and that whatever she did allowed her to level up. Now, they don't explicitly say what it is, but I think it's reasonable to assume that, if because these spirits seem to have aims and instincts or whatever, that her job was to ensnare these people in some way. Now, I don't know what she got out of it. I don't know what she accomplished or whatever, but that she was supposed to, find this person, take them on this journey, end up in this point of realization. Something about getting people along for the ride, getting people to interact with her and stuff, I think is sort of what she is supposed to do, with quotes, as a spirit. Alternatively, um, another explanation is that this is sort of her breaking from her spirit programming, for lack of a better term. When she says, hey,
Mhm.
you'll be seeing me around more. When you see me, please talk to me. That might be, again, her speaking as a spirit, or that might be her speaking from her sort of human element, as apart from her normal duties as a spirit. Maybe she has, separate from that supernatural, a sort of human connection to our protagonist, in a way where she wants to continue to have this friendship, this relationship with him. And so in that way, she desired to lie to him in a way to increase the likelihood that their encounter would last, to spend more time with him, to sort of get closer.
Yeah, I think your second explanation is the more plausible of the two. I think that, like, I don't have to spoil to say this. I'm gonna say this because of a logic I'm going to introduce, which is that everything in Monogatari is about the characters. The plot is basically bullshit. Like, if you can turn off your brain whenever the plot happens, and you would still get everything out that you need to. Whenever you're looking at why a character is doing an action, it all comes back to their personal motives as individuals, as opposed to plot bullshit like in some shonen anime. Like, you know, hashtag AOT sucks. Am I right?
Dog,
So,
the AOT episode we do is going to feed families.
except there won't be one. The AOT episode we did not produce will feed families.
We are going to get canceled, brother.
You know how I've always drawn this distinction between like character-centric and plot-centric shows?
Yeah, it's I.
It's it's
Yeah,
it's it's basically just like shows that are like Monogatari and shows that are not like Monogatari. Because in Monogatari, at the end of the day, you haven't there is some point at which this will click for you, but everything is about the characters and their motives and understanding why they said what they did. And yeah, you saw this at the end of the Maya arc a bit with explaining why Senjo was acting that way, explaining what was going on with Mayoi's desires and history specifically, and explaining what Araragi wanted to do about it. And so when you're explaining why Mayoi is lying, finding any character focused explanation is going to be, a safe bet. So yeah, that's a plausible explanation. We'll see where it goes. Let's just start at the beginning with what Monogatari is setting up from the very beginning with regards to the genre that it places itself in, which is obviously the harem genre. Uh, Monogatari opens basically with, I think, like one of the most beautiful scenes in all of anime that I've ever seen, which is this beautiful girl literally falling from the sky across dozens of windows right into the arms of our harem protagonist. And what more harem of a way is there to start off an anime than that? Am I right? Very reminiscent of Nisekoi having each person's family be gangs who are at having a gang war, and they need to hook up to create peace between the gangs. It's equally silly, equally ridiculous, but it elevates it to like the maximum contrivance point by having that one moment where the beautiful girl literally falls from the sky into his arms, and then it takes it from there by deconstructing the genre and its archetypes. And we talked about deconstructions before. Do you remember what we talked about?
yeah. Well, I was going to say I think with that, it also very subtly, a little bit later, sort of further illustrates how this is going to be it's a harem anime, but it's going to be a different harem anime. When you have mentions to actual character archetypes. Like remember when the protagonist is like you're a weird character archetype, aren't you? And they're almost like not fourth wall breaking, but talking about story and literary construction.
It's very self-aware. Yes.
It's a very, I think I said to you while we were watching, it's very media savvy anime, and so while it is a contrived introduction that is paid little heed, I think that is very intentional. It is half a commentary on how useless and dumb and ineffectual these inciting incidents are, as much as it is an indication that the rapid escalation from falling into the arms to showdown with a stapler in the guy's mouth is.
I mean, yeah, at the same time as it is like a commentary and a satire, it is also just saying like, if we're going to do this, we're going to go all the way with it. We're just going to have the girl literally fall out of the sky from, 20 stories up and fall into his arms, with feathers and birds flying all over the place and mystical light. One thing it does not like is the hesitation around confessions, and it uses Senjougahara to destroy this as much as it can in the Mayoi arc, ending with her literally just confessing. Like there will be no more confession drama after this because Senjougahara just confessed and now they're dating. Like the MC possibly having a harem of girls is almost completely closed off now because he's dating Senjougahara.
Okay.
That is the picking apart of the hesitancy to confess. Senjougahara throughout the Mayoi arc was beating him over the head, with these innuendos, with these subtle hints that the audience obviously picks up on, but he's hilariously inept at picking up on, like when she says that we're going to be friends of equal status, and then he's like, oh, just friends. Meanwhile, she's like 1 inch away from him. It's all these little things that are just like, obviously the hesitancy to confess is ridiculous, and then they confess, and then that's it.
The deconstruction still feels like the wrong term, but I didn't consider, because we stopped at the end of that episode, that the harem is on pause, certainly, because he is well, maybe not a committed relationship, but he is certainly committed to a person. God knows that wouldn't stop me. Ara 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 ara. Am I right?
Well, we'll see where that goes, but
I know where I'm going. Fucking asylum.
No, so deconstruction is not merely satire. It is picking apart the archetypes in order to rebuild them. For example, I mean, the one that it really does this the most with is the tsundere archetype. The tsundere, we all know, is just this very aggressive and cold character who is broken down throughout a series in order to become more vulnerable. And then the contrast between their vulnerable state and their aggressive state is what creates this like attractive appeal, as well as the character development that they experience throughout the series. And what a deconstruction would say is that, this is kind of ridiculous. Why would a tsundere like this ever exist in real life? But like here's how it is actually possible. I'm going to present a case where this actually makes a lot of sense for a character to be like that, and that's what this anime does. Is it takes Senjougahara, who has had a very bad experience with opening herself up to men in the past. She's been conned like 5 different times by people who said that they could help her process her feelings, and they all tricked her. And so she's very guarded. She's created this shield around her that is highly aggressive, absurdly aggressive, to the point that she says that she'll go to war with him and pulls out staplers and stuff. Yet she still wants to be vulnerable. Like the reason that she keeps getting conned is because she desperately wants someone to be able to open up to. And we see this in the scene where she is naked. And I can explain this, but what do you think about the scene where she was naked?
Yeah, the scene where she was naked. Well, I mean, that's the point. What like a crab breaking out of its shell. She the hostile figure, reveals herself to be vulnerable naked, like a crab out of its shell might be, soft and fleshy, and confronts herself fully to this figure in the hopes that he will accept her. And it is played as if the acceptance would be, sexual desire. She's showing off. She's like, hey, look at me, look at my boobs, look at my ass. Aren't you aroused right now? And in this, sort of in this way, if we were to draw an allegory, this would be, if I were to open up to you emotionally, this would be me sharing something that I wouldn't that is usually kept inside outwardly, and the desire for sexual gratification is very much in that way then similar to the desire for emotional gratification. For you to say, hey man, I understand, that seems like it'd be really hard, I love you and I'm here for you, is, I guess, Monogatari is saying in this scene would be similar to the MC being like, oh yeah man, you got a great figure, you got a great ass, to quote the great Al Pacino. And then she doesn't get the full payoff that she wants, because he says, well, what do you say? You have an adequate figure. It is shaped like a woman's meant to be. That is her desire to be vulnerable with him, and sort of him not reciprocating by only being like, yeah, sure. It'd be like if I came to you crying on your shoulder and you were like, yep.
Right, so the clothes, she says the clothes, she doesn't like wearing them because they're heavy, which obviously implies that they're like the weight, or they're like the crab shell that is that is pushing her down, that is preventing her from opening up to people. And when she takes off her clothes, she actually doesn't really open up to him. She continues in their dialogue to be extremely sassy and sarcastic, and jokes around and teases him a lot. And that is what Araragi really is not reciprocating. And I don't know if you noticed this, but in the Mayoi arc too, the reason that they were having this disconnect, the reason why Araragi kept missing all of the hints, was because Senjo kept teasing him. And just like during that naked scene, this way of intimacy that she is used to, this sort of the leftover of her shell, the leftover of her tsundere coldness, is just not something that Araragi can connect to. And it's not until she just says it straight, she just says to his face, I love you, that they can actually get anywhere. And that is no coincidence that at the same time as she says straight to his face, I love you, is the same time that she says straight to his face, hey, I can't see Mayoi, I couldn't see her this entire time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, while her being naked represents her desire to be vulnerable, her ability to be vulnerable does not actually come out until she makes these concrete steps to relate to the people around her, and also to say her feelings straight. Like, her problem with the crab did not get solved until she said exactly what her problem was out loud to Oshino, and then took the feelings into herself.
Well, then we see perhaps then I guess that would be why the main character's request for promise is really the consummation of their relationship. That he removes her way to back out by saying, hey, if you ever can't see this thing, you got to say it, because like you say, she didn't say I love you until she said, I'm gonna be fully straight truth with you. I don't know what the fuck is happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so where, as she had been conned before, where she might now back out, she says, okay, I did it, I said the thing, now I'm going to go back to playing my cards close to my chest. He says, okay, well, you can't do that anymore. If you're going to say this, you got to be fully out of your shell. You can't hide things. And so maybe that's when the relationship becomes legitimized.
Exactly. And it's kind of important to note that just as she solves her problem, she solves her problem the same way that she resolves her relationship with Araragi in episode 5, which is saying the truth. And there's a lot to be said about truth in Monogatari and what it means, which we will get into in a long time. But it's interesting to note that Mayoi's problem got solved by her just lying the entire time, and then Araragi figuring it out for her. And that's something to think about. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but that is something that to think about and something that will come up in the future.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're going to talk about truth and avenues of truth, I think that, you know, one thing that I can confidently assert from the first 5 episodes is that seeing is not believing. And I was wondering how I could initially tie in, some of the weird visual style, the weird choices of the having them walk across a newspaper, or random cuts to
Hmm.
live action scenes, weird visuals. And yes, some of that is just artistic hullabaloo on the part of Studio Shaft, and I get they're so cool, and whatever.
They are so cool. God, I love them.
Sort of linking back to the early scene with it was the girl on the student council. What's her name?
Hanekawa.
Yeah, Hanukkah. Um, how when the main character is speaking to her, he's speaking through his hands, through his eyes, through his hands.
Hmm.
There was a lot of obscuring of vision, whether it is behind the hands or by making the perspective weird. A lot of weird perspective while characters are talking. Remember one of the close intimate scenes between Hitage and the main character. They're like off in the rightmost eighth of the screen, and the camera's focused on like below them on the sidewalk. The
Hmm.
scenes are not presented clearly, just as the snail could not be seen, just as the crab could not be seen by everyone, just as the hands block the camera, uh, just as we're suddenly playing out this scene in a weird visual style. Whatever Monogatari is going to say about truth, and I don't know, and what can you say about truth as a concept? uh, I do not think that there will be much of an emphasis on what is seen being what is the absolute truth, because they have shown time and time again that what you are seeing is not necessarily the most important thing that's going on at any one moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what's a very common trope in literature, not just literature, but also mystery novels in particular, is the unreliable narrator.
Hmm?
And we are absolutely getting an enormous amount of unreliable narration, even now, and it's going to get a lot worse in the future. And this is, all drawing on Nisio's unreliable or mystery novel writing background. I didn't notice until you pointed out that Araragi was looking at Hanekawa from behind his hands, almost as if he was shielding his vision of her.
Hmm.
I think it's what do you think that means concretely?
What do I think it means concretely? So I think,
I think that's
yeah.
not I think that's not an artistic choice. I think that's a legitimate thematic choice.
So there are a couple. I think I do think part of it is rhetorical choice. I think it really does ground you in the protagonist. Um,
Hmm.
you know, it's one thing to do shot reverse shot. It is another thing to literally be seeing through their eyes, and to be reminded that you're seeing things through their eyes, to be focusing on the pen. Um, and I think it is sort of a like foreshadowing for the MC's inability to look at the point, to not see things as they are, but like to face things, that
Hmm.
the camera is focused on his pen, right? This girl who he is, I guess, implied to have some sort of potentially romantic connection to.
Hmm.
He says nothing, but it's there's some chemistry there. um and he won't even look at her. You know how you're talking to the girl, it makes you nervous, so you look at your weather app. That's what they're setting up, is that when he's sort of in these situations, he will be staring at his pen.
That is one thing that is one way you could read it. Another way you could read it along the same lines is that he's unwilling, like kind of on a deeper level, he's unwilling to look at who she truly is. So the only thing we actually know about Hanakawa is she's class rep, she's a rule follower, and she describes Senjo very well. Araragi really talks her up, describes her as studious and stuff. He says that the only reason that she talks to him is because she's really nice.
Mm.
And Mayoi also really likes her. And in general, when we see her on screen, she's a really like nice person, right?
Mm.
She's almost like blindingly nice. Like she
Yeah.
radiates
You can't,
goodness.
so you can't look at her like she's the sun.
Right, exactly.
Well,
I think that's a way to read it.
it's interesting how you say that, because I think the most out of character thing she does is when she sort of like all of a sudden gets really serious, and she's like, I think that Hitagi was is almost more beautiful now than she was, like a fragile thing that can be broken. As she went from a being full of life to a fragile work of glass. Her beauty is more. It's a I think it's a good societal commentary about young girls and body image things.
Hmm.
That we say that a model is beautiful when a model is much closer to being underweight and perhaps unhealthy than a standardly proportioned person.
Hmm.
But it comes out of nowhere because she's this nice wholesome figure, and I guess we don't know too much about her. Maybe she has that kind of side to her, but notice how her mouth gets different, her voice gets different, she talks different, and her inflection changes. It's a very almost not brutal delivery from her. I wonder what you make of that one off line that she has about her beauty and as it has changed with her illness.
I actually never really understood that line until you described it that way. And I think you can maybe read it two ways. Either she's jealous or she just has low self-esteem and praises Senjougahara in ways that are sort of unhealthy. I actually think it's the latter, that
Mm-hmm.
that maybe there's an issue with her self-esteem, and she's
Mm-hmm.
praising Senjougahara beyond what
Yeah.
is actually due to her, right in line with the idea that she sort of exudes goodness. She just praises people even when it's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think because this is the introductory episode, I would like you to continue to talk about why what in these first 5 episodes is so emblematic of why Monogatari is so good, because that's going to need to carry us through 100 episodes.
Hmm.
I mean, until I am well versed enough where I can sort of discuss these ideas with you, it needs to be your evangelism of Shaft's genius and just how great this show is. So if there's anything that would allow you to sort of gush about Monogatari a little bit.
So one thing that goes back to the idea of little hints being laid around and all cascading forward and all clicking together at the same time that I really love is the non-chronological order of Monogatari. What this allows the show to do is to talk about things in a very focused manner. Like when we're dealing with Senjougahara and Mayoi in these 5 episodes, we are really just dealing with them. And there is a lot of stuff that's happening in the periphery. There is a lot of stuff that Araragi feels, and there are a lot of people who he has relationships with that are off camera that we don't really know anything about. There's a lot going on with Hanekawa that we don't know anything about. There's clearly some history with Meimei. A lot of stuff that happened during Golden Week and Spring Break that we don't know about. But the show just takes its time getting us started with what's going on with Senjo, and giving us a strong introduction into the basic formula. But what this allows the show to do is later on, when it fills in those gaps, it's going to make what happened before a lot stronger. And in the way that you said that you finally understood why certain characters said what they said, and did what they did towards the end of the arc. In that same way, Monogatari will be this process of continual revelation, of understanding what characters were doing, like 5 episodes back, 10 episodes back, 20 episodes back. You're constantly getting information that fills in those gaps, and that allows these really intense moments of catharsis to come out of absolutely nowhere, like we saw at the end of episode 5. But it's just going to keep happening in greater and greater magnitude, and that's also what gives it all of its rewatch value. I say I've watched it like 5 or 6 times, and that's because every time I watch it, I get something new out of it. Just because the more you can fill in gaps and the more you can make connections between things that happened at the end of the show and things that happened at the beginning of the show, the more meaning it gets. And that happens because of the mystery novel structure, and because of the non-chronological order, and because of just the fact that Monogatari is about characters and not plot. And characters are really complicated. People are really complicated. And there's almost infinite depth to what you can try to understand about a person compared to just understanding the ABC of a plot, right?
Well, it's interesting that so far every arc, like you said, has has been discovering a character and not going and not some major plot event. In when we talked about ReZero and we did it arc by arc, right? Each arc, it takes our main stable of characters, maybe introducing, one or two one-off ones who might join us, but not sort of like to the same level as the main pantheon, and changes them due to the plot events. Subaru and Emilia's relationship changes every arc. It becomes more deeper, more complex, all that stuff. We eventually get our payoff, all that. So far, it's only been 2 arcs, but the relation and the status quo of the relationships has changed, but they have not gotten as deep as much as it is that our understandings of these characters have grown. The main character is still very much a dense, unobservant, kind of, like just like how Subaru is the shonen protagonist, isekai protagonist.
Isekai.
He's the harem protagonist archetype. He's still very much the same, and I'm curious to see as the arcs increase. You can't just keep adding more and more characters, or maybe you can, but
it's a harem after all.
Yeah,
gotta have 10 girls.
Yeah, we'll just have a 50-person harem. But will we continue to see the vast majority of complexity grow from our understanding of the characters and not a deeper relationship between said characters?
Yeah, I mean, it's I would say it is basically all in the understanding of the characters. I mean, not every character relationship is going to grow. Some of them will straight up deteriorate and fall apart.
Yeah.
But right.
But I don't. I guess what I mean is I don't see them gaining added complexity. As much
relationships.
As like the main character's relationship with what's her name, Shinga
Senjo.
What?
Senjo.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Senjo. Is different.
Senjo.
They're dating now, but can you definitively say that it is deeper and more complex?
Well, I think what you're getting at is that the characters themselves have revealed all of their complexities. They've laid it all bare.
Yes, but we continue to learn new complexities about them and understand them as characters. But even though their relationships have changed, we're girlfriend and boyfriend. It's almost comically, definitely intentionally basic. I mean, we've been through all this psychological stuff and deep literary commentary and symbolism, and then all of a sudden we'd be like, okay, I'm your girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then
that's
roll credits. Like, yeah, it's dumb. It's shallow. It's because the relationships.
But that's what life is like.
Yeah, but ain't that the truth? The relationships don't get more complex. The characters do.
The comparison that I like to think about all the time is Beatrice. Maybe just because she's my favorite character, but I think she's my favorite character, or one of my favorite characters, because she has the exact same sort of character development as Monogatari characters do, which is that her transformation is not what's important, and like her plot relevance is not what's important. What's really magical about Beatrice is that it takes 2 entire seasons for us to understand why she is sitting in the library, and once that hits, like, it really hits. Like that is one of the best I described this in our last ReZero episode. Like, that is one of the best scenes in all of anime, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Where she's in the library saying "choose me," and Subaru's like, "Well, this is why you've been in the library the whole time." That is a deepening in your understanding of the character without the character ever actually changing. Like, Beatrice doesn't change throughout the entire 2 seasons until that moment. And but what does change is your understanding of her, and it changes dramatically. And Monogatari is like that dialed up to 11 with every single character. And that's what I really love about Monogatari. I guess we can end soon, but I wanted to ask you about the scene at the end of the first arc, where he steps on the scale and weighs more. Why does he weigh more?
Huh. Yeah.
Interpretation.
Well, so one, it's like it's such a funny, epic metric system moment. Because when I saw that, I was like, is that bad? Is that what he's not supposed to weigh? I was like, what's 100 kilograms to pounds? 1 second, let me get 100 kilograms to pounds. Okay, yes, he weighs 220 pounds. So fucking Araragi is walking around like a linebacker right now. Somehow maybe the weight crab has shifted to him would be the most obvious thing you can say. And I think you could say, maybe so far, both of these arcs have seen in some way the monster become part of him alongside the girl in a sort of inverted way. To start with the little girl, it was all because he had an issue with his family. But now he mends the relationship with his family, but she's still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
She is still the snail, but she's going to function a little bit differently as a snail. Well, we say it very literally at the get-go. This is the crab that makes you weigh nothing. Well, the crab has now moved to him, and now he weighs a lot. Literally flipping the effect of the crab.
I like this theory because you're lacking critical information, but it kind of makes sense. It's kind of like a red herring.
Yeah,
a red herring of a theory. You're not lacking critical information from the future. You just missed tiny details. Araragi's weight is 55 kilograms, and I actually have no idea where that's mentioned. He might have gone on the scale earlier.
What's her face is 45.
Yes. So he took Senjo's weight onto him.
Oh, cool. Hey,
what do you make of it now?
You ever listen to the song "The Weight"? Music from Big Pink about take a load off, take a load
Dog,
free.
who is that?
It's from the band. It's a good song. It's where this guy walks through he's essentially walking through a funny land, full of a colorful little cast of characters like crazy Chester, and they talk about some weird stuff going on in their life, and he greets them all with the same refrain, which is take a load off and put the load right on me. So that is to say that I don't have a media savvy point or a game theory MatPat interpretation of what that is. Yeah, sure, he's carrying her weight now. We shall see what that means. Maybe he will crack under the weight of carrying the burdens of everyone, and he'll have this big moment of catharsis and open up and stop being this blank slate character. You could say maybe he's not fully sure how to have friends. So early on, he's just taking on all of her weight. Maybe down the road, he'll have to learn how to sort of balance that.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe he'll slowly get worn down, and that will be the end of their relationship. Maybe she died, and now she's a ghost that he's carrying around. It could be anything. I think it's too early to tell, but maybe on second watch, I will uncover a small detail.
I'll just briefly say that throughout the Mayoi arc, Araragi is being very self-deprecating. He is alone and notes how his mother dotes on his sisters but not on him, and how he feels like a disappointment to her because his grades used to be good and now they're not. And he feels inadequate as a son, and he's angry at himself for being a petty human being. The word it used is his smallness as a human, or his weakness as a human. And there's a string of dialogue where Mayoi implies to him that he's sort of trying to still be a child by not going home and mending his relationship with his mother. And at some point he also says that he used to not make friends, and so he's all around kind of a loner type. And the fact that he turned around and saved Senjougahara, not just saved Senjougahara, but Senjougahara noted that he's the kind of person who would do it for anyone, is actually going to turn out to be kind of a big moment for him. This is the first time that he's sort of helped someone. And the fact that he's taking her weight with him, taking on the responsibility of just being her friend, after he spent a long time not having any friends, is going to turn out to be pretty meaningful for him. But there's a lot more to talk about there in the future. Yeah, I think the reason that he was being like when Senjougahara said, "Do you want a girlfriend?" and he said, "Not really." I think the reason he said that is because he doesn't feel worthy of having a girlfriend, and he doesn't in general feel worthy of having friends. You know, he's still willing subconsciously to take on that responsibility. And
I will say
that's
this about Monogatari. I do get the feeling that the people who wrote this have spoken to a woman before.
it's
Like
one guy, but yeah,
it does not exude, creepiness and self-serving fantasy like some other animes have. Like it does feel real. I'm sure that because of this, anime fans absolutely hate the writing in this show.
um, they hate something else about the show, but very true.
Is it that there's no nudity? Give me full
Who knows?
frontal.
Who knows? Maybe there will be some. Who knows?
All right, so you keep talking about how we can't talk about anything, because we lack the critical information. So after the first 5 episodes of Monogatari, then where do we stand? I mean, why have we recorded this whole video?
What I really want to do is I want to go basically arc by arc or every 2 arcs, studying what Monogatari is trying to teach us, like simply, straight up. Like what is the first time experience with no crazy connections? Because I think there is a lot there, and it's easy to forget it all once you are at the end and you're thinking about all the high concept bullshit.
So
Um,
so then what did Monogatari teach us over the first 5 episodes?
well, it taught us that we have to talk straight to each other and we have to not lie with
Well,
each other. But
if it's supposed to teach us that we should not lie and we should be straight with each other, I guess I should come forward.
you're gay.